You are listening to Eastmans Fly Cast, an adventure fly fishing specific podcast covering travel, tactics, and next level insight. Now your host, Brian Barney.
Yo, what's happening, guys? Well, we got a few episodes of this fly fishing podcast out. Super excited about that. Sometimes the toughest part with these ideas is putting them into motion and getting started. So feel really good that we've got a few episodes out and released to you guys. And it's a cold Sunday today, below 30 degrees. It's probably 15 degrees with a north wind blowing. So fishing's out for the day. I figured I'd sit down and record a technical podcast just on some of the techniques we're using this spring to find trout. Like, you know, the key to becoming a good fly fisherman is just experience on the water and learning from the conditions you see. And, you know, you see good days and you get your butt kicked, and it's just about learning from it and getting better. But I thought I'd talk about some of the techniques that we're using, some of the flies, some of the rigs. And, you know, with this fly fishing podcast, I wanted to reach all masses of fishermen, like from the starter that's just getting started fly fishing, or maybe hasn't even started fly fishing, just interested in it and thinking about it. And I want to reach those people all the way to experienced fly fishermen that fish a bunch of days on the water and are fired up to chase, you know, giant big brown trout and to try to catch those next level fish and to try to catch, you know, good numbers and be into them consistently. Like, you know, you can learn something from anybody, you know, or something from everyone. We talked about it in Todd's podcast. You know, it's just the key to any of these endeavors is just opening your mind, learning from it, and seeing where you can apply that in your own fishing. So I thought I'd talk about some of the rigs. The springtime is such a good season to be out and fishing. Like, you know, around here and on these rivers, it can be gnarly weather. Like, it's snowing again today. It's snowing, raining, cold, windy, storms. You know, as we get more into spring and summer, we'll get a bunch of lightning storms that come in. So there isn't as many guys on the water. Like right now, the rivers just aren't crowded. And so it's a good local season to be out and on these rivers. And there's just some great fishing to be had. So I guess we'll start to break down some of the types of fishing and what I'm looking for in these rivers. So standardly, I always have a nymph rod tied up, and, you know, I guess we can get into nymph techniques, but, you know, I've always got a nymph rod tied up. Usually got a streamer rod tied up, and streamer, they'll eat them in the wintertime. They just have to come right by their face, and I've been made a believer by this. You know, I used to dead drift the streamers a lot in the early spring and do good with it just because those fish aren't moving as much in cold water. They're not chasing. But as that water starts to warm up, which it was doing right before this cold front, they're starting to move more and look for those bigger meals. And there's fish out there in the river that only eat other bait fish. Those, you know, those super giants, like, man, you see a lot of them, the biggest fish on the river on a good streamer on a good day. And so, you know, I've been carrying, I really like the spay rod approach too from wade fishing. Just, you don't need any back casts, and you can flip that thing, you know, all the way across the river. You can get really good shots. It's really good for swing fishing, stripping in, and you've got, you know, my 6-weight is a 12.5-foot rod, so you've got so much leverage on it. So I really like fishing that thing for streamers, kind of wading around. I also just like a standard streamer rod. And so on that spay rod, I'm using like a Skagit head, which is a heavy head. I think it's like a 325 or 350. And then I'm using, you know, weighted lines, and there's different sink rates to it. You know, I'm usually fishing a fairly deep sink rate, like usually 10 feet to 15 feet, a T11, T14, something like that. On a streamer rod, I just got a brand new stick, a brand new 7-weight. I had been using a 6-weight, but a brand new 7-weight, a new line. There's so much to the lines, and you know, we're all on a budget and we can't own every different one. So I just talk to different guys and figure out what they're using and try out these different lines. But I'm really digging on this. I've got this Airflow. It's a 250 grain. streamer. Should have had this box right in front of me so I could tell you guys. Streamer long. I also like my buddy really likes the Airflow shovel head. A couple just really good streamer lines. Also, Scientific Angler makes some. Rio makes some. I mean, there's a bunch of different lines out there, but I've got that new line on a 7-weight. Just going out of the boat, just dissecting those lines. It's one of the best way to throw streamers. And, you know, in the water that, you know, you kind of, you change up your strip. And your strip, you kind of see what the fish are keying in on. And the slower the strip, the deeper it's going to go. The faster the strip, the shallower it's going to be. And also your angle to the bank. If you toss upriver a little bit and strip back, that fly seems to get deeper in that water column than straight across where that current's kind of pulling and sweeping it down. So the angle's really important. And then, you know, there's just like a feel to those rods and when to let it go. Like where you really want to get those flies down is in those deep sections, those big holes. And it's tough. There's a lot of current there and you can't really strip and have it down. So you'll almost toss it up and almost dead drift it with little strips as you're bumping around down in there. You're trying to get that fly down is one of the biggest keys. And it's one of the funnest ways, like, you know, and if the fish are on the chase, you can see a bunch of fish, and you're always looking into the water and looking for your fly, and you're seeing fish grab at it and chase it, and when it's on, it's just the funnest fishing. And the fish you might see, it might be that 24, 26-inch brown that you're searching for, or bigger, you know. So, and you definitely see a lot of those, like, just really good fish, like the 18 to 22-inch rippers. So just love pulling a streamer. So usually you have a streamer rod tied up, and it's just hard to say. Like sometimes you don't get as many fish, but the ones you get are good ones. I also like, you know, I've got a nymph rig tied up, and nymph rigs, it's all about the water you're fishing, the depth of it. And so with a nymph rig, I fish an indicator, and I tie all my own leaders. So on those streamer rods, on those weighted lines, I'm just using a real short, you know, 16-inch to 2-foot, and I'm fishing a 12-pound test. I really like I'll build all my own leaders, and I'll build them out of a P-line Halo. It's just really good stuff, and you can get it in all different weights. And so, you know, it just depends on the leader I'm building, but, you know, I go 50% heavy, and that's what I attach to my butt section. And then I go 30% where I step down, and then 20% is what my leader will go. Now, not on a streamer rod. Streamer rod, just 16 to 24 inches, a 12-pound test, sometimes even 15-pound. But on these leaders that I build, it just depends on what I'm fishing. So if I'm nymph fishing, you know, sometimes I'm nymphing, you know, really shallow still water, you know, that these fish will be sitting in. And so I'll fish like you know, right now there's the squalla hatches start coming off in the spring, and they're a giant stonefly. They're like a salmon fly or a golden stone, but they come out early in the spring in March and April. So a lot of times I'll fish a chubby because it floats really good up top, and I'll fish, you know, 16 inches to 20 inches down to a little rubber legs, and I'll nymph that way. Sometimes a lot of times I'll fish an indicator, and then it just depends. But like on a lot of these western rivers, you know, if you're wade fishing, I'll fish a longer leader and kind of wash a little bit. But going down in the boat, you want to be fishing it light. And even when you're nymphing, like I run some light ones through there, and then I'll add some weight or I'll add some leader length by moving my indicator up or something of that nature. But I'd say I like to be about 4 to 5 feet from my indicator to my weight. And then from my weight to my first fly, 12 to 20 inches. I fish it shorter if I'm fishing in a lot of brush and high water. I fish it longer if I'm fishing in a bunch of runs and a wash. And I usually fish 2 flies. So I usually fish a rubber leg, leech, I'll fish a prince, pheasant tail, usually a bigger fly up front, a sculpin. And if it's a weighted big fly, I shorten that leader length up. So instead of going, you know, 4 or 5 feet from my indicator to my weight, I'll just go 4 feet to a sculpin, straight to a sculpin, because that sculpin's weighted, no weight or anything. And then off my sculpin, I'll run a fly. And my trailer flies. I just got a whole box of just like trout candy, just different stuff. It always seems like they like to eat a worm, like different colors, pink, orange, tan. I mean, it's just such a simple fly, and on there, and fish just like it. Sometimes I'll trail with a sand wand. Sometimes I'll trail. Gosh, I mean, in my river, they love a serendipity size 16, which is, tie it in green and red. They like the green here. It passes as a midge. It passes as a caddis. It passes as so many different things. So the fish love to eat them. I'll fish some midge patterns, usually size up to a 16. I do have this 20 emerging midge, this black one with some gold ribbing on it that does good for me. I mean, it's just flies. You just build confidence over time. You just fish a bunch of different flies, and you see fish on different flies. You build confidence in those. In a lot of fishing, like, you can tie it a lot to the bug they're eating, but it's the way you're fishing it. It's so funny how you can go out with somebody fishing the same exact gear, and they can catch more fish, or you catch more fish than them. Like, it's just a feel. It's just being fishy and getting those good drifts, believing there's fish in there, getting those mends and stacking it on there and sitting it in there and seeing if there's something in there. If you're not bumping bottom, you lengthen your leader, or you add more weight. You get it down there to where the fish are, and then you run a couple drifts that way. You just keep believing, and that indicator dances a little bit. You set that hook like there's a fish there. Now, most times it's going to be bottom. Eventually there's a fish. And it's wild as you start catching fish as you're going down the river on that current given day. Like, you just catch more because you just start believing. You start believing in what you're fishing and how you're fishing it. And I'll run some different bugs, but, I just know they're going to eat my bugs if I stick it in front of them. I've got bugs that I've built confidence in different rivers, and I'll try different colors, and, there is something to it, it's, fishing your streamers or your nymphs or different colors, or dry flies for that matter. They just like different patterns, but I'll try different patterns and then use proven patterns. And, I just kind of got a system of flies I kind of run through, and then always looking to add to it. Every time I'm in a fly shop, I'm always looking around and going, oh, man, that's a cool pattern. I'll try that out. And then just fish it a little bit, see if I can get something to come up on it, or see if I can get something to eat it. So just messing with the patterns a lot. I carry a markers in my boat. You mark up your flies a little bit. And it's amazing how, a black line or a color in something purple, all of a sudden it'll get a hit. There isn't a purple bug out there, but fish just don't see flies like us humans do. They just see them. They see them through a different lens, So there's no telling what fish like. They just you just got to get out and start fishing. So the springtime is an awesome time of year to be out, and so I'll have those rods tied up. Usually have a dry fly rod tied up. Like right now they're sipping midge, and as it gets just a little bit warmer, we're going to see betas come off. We're going to see March browns, and you can see some good fish on March browns. It seems like the time big fish eat on hatches is when you're really into them, catching them. You have the fish fooled. Like the flies are hitting the water, they're eating them. They've eaten a dozen of them before your fly goes back, and your fly is just the right representation of what they're eating, and in every little spot those fish are eating them. And that's when you see good fish. And I like these bigger hatches. Like, I've seen so many big fish off the salmon fly hatch. But there's, I've also got my butt kicked a bunch. There's a lot of boats on the water. The hatch is real finicky. It'll be good one day, bad the next. Sometimes there's bugs around. Fish aren't eating it. Like, you really got to get keyed into it. It's the same with all these hatches. But that March brown is a cool hatch. When those things come off, those things are like a size 12 or size 10. Some really good fish will eat them. But I'm just looking in those little slack areas. I'm looking for fish eating on top, and then I'll start throwing it. At least in this early spring fishing, which is what we're talking about. Man, I really want to chase a squalla hatch. I see them on the Madisons, and we get them to eat chubbies and things, but I've never really seen it go off on the Madison. I think it's like more of the western rivers in Montana. I'm thinking I know that Big Hole. I love that river, and I hear it has a squalla hatch on it, a pretty good one. I'm going to read up and see if I can't figure out when that thing is, or at least just make a couple trips over in April and see if I can time it. I mean, it's a giant stonefly, but there's not nearly the guys on the water. I think some of those other western rivers are out there. I watched that Montana Wild has a film named Squalla, just the most killer film those guys put out. Just a bunch of good fish eating dry flies and action and three buddies drifting down the river. It's just so well put together. Those guys did a good job on that, but they nicknamed it Squalla. So it's got me all pumped to go chase some squalla hatches around. I just need to do a little bit more research and then just dedicate a weekend day and just go, yep, just taking my drift boat over there, get a buddy and head on over. And like I say, have all these weapons in the boat. And I love throwing a streamer over there too. Man, those fish in the big hole eat a streamer. God, there's some big browns in there too. So yeah, take the rods over there in the boat, maybe camp out over there and see if I can't get into some of the squalla hatches. But yeah, that's the fun time in spring. There just isn't as many guys. You can kind of time the river right. Hopefully, get into some dry flies, good nymphing, pull a streamer a little bit, just figure out what's working. And I like to go down. I love to throw out of the boat. It's such a good look at different features and bank lines as you're going down. But as it's in the spring, I like to stop and work big runs too, just see what's living in there. And they can be living in big runs. They can be living any fishy water right now. And it's about learning what type of water they like as well as you're going down, where you're picking up fish. Like I say, you just start to catch fish and then you start to catch more because you figure out where they're laying and where they like and what they like to eat. So I'll stop and work some big runs, known runs that I have. I got this new spot I want to stop at that Charlie just caught one with a streamer out of that spot. And I usually park up right, and kind of the flow of the river has changed. There isn't as much coming down that channel. I waded all over that place trying to catch trout last time we were in there, and then rode the boat to the other side, and Charlie hooked one off that black streamer. So I want to stop and work that spot next time going down. I'm always looking for spots, and I mean, it's for me, it's like making my own assessment of where they live and what side I'm going to fish it from and looking at the run. And then there's just nothing better than looking at a place that you think has fish and getting out and working it and then finding a few fish there. Gosh, it's so fun. Such a fun time of the year to be out in springtime. And I need to make it up to the Missouri too. Missouri's a bigger river, big fish, big action. As it warms up here, I'm going to be fishing a ton. I'm just finishing out this house now, which will get me some more free time. But I mean, that's the key. Like I know on my hunting podcast, I'm always talking about evolving and getting better and improving, and it's a big part of my enjoyment in it. And it's the same thing with fly fishing. Like there's no level that you can reach. You can always improve and always get better. And yeah, fly fishing doesn't have a lot of training, but it's like anything that's good out west. You got to have some grit in you. You got to be willing to be out there in nasty weather. You got to be willing to wake up before guys or to stay out late after guys. You have to be willing to float down streams, where you're not sure if you can make it down with a drift boat, and you may have to do a portage, and just fishing where other guys don't, and looking at the water. A different way, looking for the features that hold fish, not just the runs that hold fish, or that I like to fish big runs too, and some of them everybody knows about, but I love those little features you can find that are holding fish. So there isn't much training in fly fishing, but you have to have grit and toughness. And then, like I say, you improve from experience on the water. And so it's just getting out for as many days as you can, having fun with buddies, fishing. I fish by myself a bunch. And then, I live right here on the river. I'm so fortunate. Like I can finish up work, and if the girl's got something going, or I can even fish for an hour and take a little walk and then come home after that. So just being on the water is the absolute best teacher. And that's how you get better at fishing. And then also, it's challenging yourself. It's going to different rivers and finding different species and using different flies, different techniques. Like all that goes into your skill set of fishing. Like it all relates and transposes to the fly fishing. Like, and whatever drives you. Like, it seems like the more I trout fish, like I love chasing those big ones, but I also just like action. I like being out on the river. I like walking down the banks. I like reading water. It's one of my favorite places to be. But it is, if you want to really improve and get better, it is challenging yourself with different species, different places, different river systems, different states. And I need to do more of it. I travel around. I love to fly fish these different places, but I do get stuck on my home water because it is so easy. But I need to get better, like when I have a free day or a free weekend day, is just getting up earlier and going, no, I'm traveling today. I'll pay $100 of gas. I'm going to go to a new place on planet Earth and go float this stream and go try to figure that out, because I just love exploring in new places. And then if I'm short on time, or if I got a buddy coming in, or if I got a free afternoon, or when it's prime time, then I'll be fishing, a lot of my home rivers around here. And I do, I've got so many options around here. I don't need to travel far to find good fishing. I mean, the Jefferson, the Madison, the Gallatin all flow into the Missouri. I mean, they're just right out my back door. The Jefferson's nearly untouched as far as like, compared to the Madison. And there isn't as many fish, but there's some good fish in that river. I love to eat a streamer and just less boats, and you can have your own experience on that place in the middle of summer with less pressure. And same with the Big Hole, and Beaverhead, and the Ruby. The Ruby's real close. Just a bunch of different streams. Probably all of them are within an hour of here, which is crazy. I mean, Missouri takes me a little bit longer to get to, but yeah, just some great rivers. But yeah, as I get time, I do want to go up and chase bull trout, somewhere where it's legal and somewhere where you got a good chance at catching a big one up there. And I'll bring my spay rods and bring my big streamer rods up there. And those rivers up there, they feel coastal, like they're big, deep, big flow, glacial fed. Just beautiful rivers up there. I got to get up and try that. Yeah, and along with that, like, I've had some buddies that have done really good in these lakes fishing for walleye and northerns. Like, gosh, that sounds fun on a fly rod. I should go up and try that. I do like fishing the Stillwater and want to get better at it. Boy, there's some big fish in the Stillwater. And right now, like with the ice coming off, gosh, I need to go check Hebgen. Like that Hebgen Lake is such a big lake, and there's just giant browns in there. And as that ice comes off, man, will they hit a fly coming off that ice shelf. Gosh, that could be any day, or I would say probably any day. I wouldn't think. I mean, the ice just came off Ennis and the Madison. There was already somebody, we call it Fletcher Channel up there. Gosh, there's some big fish in there. Ice was off for maybe a day or two, and there was guys down in there. There's just a lot of guys going hard. It's there really is room for everybody to have their own experience and have fun on the water. And there's a lot of big trout in these systems, that's for sure. So gosh, I was just thinking about just reminded me, I hope I got it right, that I was just thinking of this other river system that sits south, that dumps out of Wyoming into Idaho. I think it's the Green. I think I said it on a podcast. I don't know why I just thought of that, but it's a river I really want to fish. Man, does that look like a fun river to fish. I'm always driving by it, traveling to other places. But it's not that far away, and it's a big system. Yeah, there's a bunch of cool spots. But yeah, just looking for it to get warmer and take advantage, try to see if I can't track down one of these really good squalla hatches and put some days on the water and pick up some of these next level browns and streamer rod or nymph rod. It seems like they eat this time of year. And then, just get after it with buddies. I got to get my boat out and get everything and make sure everything's in order there. I think everything's good. I went through it and put a new bottom on it a couple years ago. I run there's a bunch of different drift boats for out west here, and a bunch of good ones. But man, do they sure charge a lot of money for those drift boats. That's what I need, is a drift boat sponsor. Oh my gosh, it's they can be $10,000-$12,000 for a glorified rowboat. It's nice though, to have those. They're just set up for fly fishing. They're set up to assassinate these rivers and get after them. So I do just love a drift boat. I run here on the Madison. We have a lot of windy days, and so I run a low side hide. It's a really lightweight boat. It's just a Ferrari on the river. You can run anything out here. The high sides do fine too. High sides are better for bigger water. You gotta watch a low side. Like on the Yellowstone, it could be gnarly on the Yellowstone in places, and it's really maneuverable. It fishes really well. You can really pull on those sticks and hold it in place. It'll really cut through that current nice. So I do like running like that drift boat. I just love mine for the waters out here. But yeah, you do need to be careful as you go to bigger water, where if you get water over the sides there, can definitely be dangerous. And in any of these rivers, really, you got to have your head on a swivel, and things can happen pretty quick on these boats. Like I've seen people in the Big Hole in a raft, like go down the wave train and flip their boat. Well, a couple of my buddies had to save a couple guys that flipped their boat out there on the Big Hole. Man, I've seen drowned boats here and there enough to know that you just don't want to make any mistakes. So I run that little low side hide. I have that. I'd like to pick up a raft too. Raft seems to go down the water a little bit quicker, but you can run some gnarlier water with it. I'd really like to start running the bear trap. I've actually never floated it. I've hiked the whole thing fishing it. It's just great fishing. I just need to go with somebody that knows the line, but every time I look at that rapid, man, that thing just scares the heck out of me at different flows. It's just like, how do you make it through that? I need to see somebody go down through it so I can see the line. I've had a couple people tell me, but man, that kitchen sink looks gnarly. I'm not worried about any of the other ones, green wave, any of the technical stuff up above, but man, that one big one, the kitchen sink, look out. Some flows you can do it, some flows you can't, and sometimes it's safer to go during big flows because, there isn't as many rocks showing, but, big flows is a lot of water. That's a lot of hydraulics in there. Oh my gosh. But I would like to get a raft to do that. Definitely run some whitewater fishing for steelhead. Some gnarly water out there, but it can be spooky. Guy's got to have his head on a swivel. So I'd like to pick up a raft with a frame. Would be really nice for some of the gnarlier water, or gnarly water conditions. High water can be a tough time of year too. You just have so much water coming down. You can hardly get over to the banks. Can't make a mistake. Just got to be on the sticks. I've never personally been in a boat that sank or tipped over or anything, but I don't want to be either. I tell you that much. But it's fun. It's like if it makes when situations get a little sketchy like that, or you're riding out big storms, makes your heart beat, makes you a little nervous. There's a little anticipation or anxiety that you have, I think that's good for a guy. It challenges you, and you're going into a situation you just gotta use your head and get yourself out of. I like those pressure moments. A lot of fly fishing is pressure filled moments. I mean, you think of rowing down where you got to get your dips and you got to get your strokes right to be able to get down through water. And even the simple rivers like the Madison, it's so low in places throughout the summer that you just drag your boat through gravel bars and you're hung up and you don't know which channel to take. I mean, I take it for granted just because I've been floating it for so long, but all of these rivers out here, like you got to, they're pressure-filled moments where you got to make good decisions. You're rowing down and you got to choose the right channel or get off and go scout it, or, you don't always pick correctly, but you almost have to be pretty good or a high percentage, or otherwise you'll get yourself some gnarly channel that then drops off back to the river and you're in some nightmare trying to get your boat down there, whatever the case is. So they're pressure-filled moments where you got to be good on the sticks, make good decisions, keep yourself safe. Like the decisions you make directly affect your safety. I mean, you have to get to your put in, you have to get to your takeout. You don't always recognize them from the river. Like there's a lot of logistics there that you have to make sure you get right, or you're in for a long day, especially when you're traveling and fishing different places. Remember where to put your keys, and oh my gosh, shuttle stories. sure anybody that fly fishes has a handful of shuttle stories. And a lot of our shuttle drivers around here, I don't guide every day on the water, and so I don't get shuttles every day. And so some days they're shut down and you just leave a message on their answering machine. You're just hoping they run your shuttle. Oh my gosh, I've had to, it's a good thing that I don't mind running and getting exercise, but I've had to jog to different access points to try to get my truck that was never shuttled. I've seen mistakes made with keys in pockets, keys in trucks, and I hate making bonehead moves. Like I'm always, with those drift boats and with all that stuff, like it's always, you just think through your situation. You always double check the hitch. You always double check the lights, double check that everything's on there, because you can't make that mistake. Backing up, you always make sure that you got the right line on it and control your vessel and know where other rigs are. And, the whole deal, you just can't make a mistake. You can't back into somebody's outfit or something, so, you always have to have your logistics right, and I hate bonehead maneuvers. But throughout the years, it's just inevitable that you make it. God, I was all excited going fishing with a couple different buddies over on the big hole over there. I have to say, I haven't made many mistakes over the years, but this one was my worst. So we went over there and we did this big monumental afternoon float on this place and fishing dry flies, fishing the salmon fly, chasing the hatch. It was good fishing, and then we hit a storm at the end. I remember a whole big, huge cottonwood. Like the wind picked up, and the cottonwood downed in the river up behind us. 100-foot tree with all these branches hit the river with the wind blowing and 50-mile-an-hour gusts, and I think we got them up above and then hit that storm, which is just the way it is sometimes. But it was spooky with trees and branches floating down, and oh my gosh, it was a gnarly windstorm. And we get down to the bottom, and see, I have the shuttle rig. So my buddy he brought his boat over, so he's got his truck and trailer. I've got my truck. I'm the shuttle rig, and we get down there to the shuttle rig. And I don't have the keys. I usually leave them right in the bumper. I leave them with the truck or in the gas tank, or they got to be somewhere. I'm just looking at it. It's like, man, I just don't have them. I'm looking in all my pockets and my waders, and it's just like they're nowhere to be found. The keys are really just the most important part. As I travel all over the country and all over the world, you always got to know where your wallet is. You always got to know where your keys are. And, a lot of times I have a hide key or a backup key, or I do now in my truck. I didn't then, but always have a hide key in there, so just in case. And a lot of times I'll just leave mine in my center console, and if I had to bust out my back window, I should probably zip tie it somewhere or get that hide key put somewhere. But right now it's sitting in my center console, but at least there's another set of keys there. But I have never lost my keys, ever. In the history of Brian Barney, never lost my keys. But this time we get down, and I can't find my keys anywhere. And two of my really good buddies. And two, we pushed our limits on this float and came out at dark. It's already 10:30, 11 o'clock by the time we get to my shuttle rig. And I don't have the keys. Finally, I just determined, it was man, I think I grabbed them and put them in your center console when I jumped in your truck. When we ran your truck up, we dumped the boat. I never grabbed the key. I think they're up in your truck. All those 11 miles or 14 miles up to the truck, and it's totally dark. There's no rigs around. There's no, what are you going to do? You're just not going to knock on somebody's house to go give you a ride, It's man, I got us into this mess. All right. So those guys, they built a fire down there on the bank and hung out, and I took off running for the truck. And I had his keys at that point, or his keys were in his rig, so I could drive his truck with the trailer back down and do the shuttle anyways. But yeah, I ended up running 2.5 hours that night in my fishing shoes, which are like a sandal with felt on them. Just wore the felt off those things, jogged up, grabbed the shuttle rig. Just the stupidest move. Oh my gosh, just kills me. But we got it done. Had to jog for other rigs that weren't my issue. Who had a shuttle? I'm thinking Todd. I had him on the podcast. He was on the second episode. I hate to call somebody out for this, and I should have called him out on his own podcast. I forgot all about this. I think Todd made a mental error and forgot the keys when we were fishing last summer, and I had to have my wife come pick us up. I hope I'm not wrong on that. I'll have to ask him and then fill you guys. I'm almost positive I'm sure Todd forgot his keys at some point, or he forgot something. I think it was forgot his keys, and I had to have my wife has saved me. I don't know how many times, because I've had it with Todd. I've had it, just with buddies that I'll take fishing, or sometimes I'll be working for somebody building a house and be like, yeah, let's go out fishing. And, you just trust that people take care of their keys. Now I know, like my buddies, you'd get scolded if, my older buddy, if you ask them, hey, you got your keys for the shuttle, right? You'd get scolded because it's like, yeah, man, I got my keys. I got my shit together, don't worry about me. All the thinking's been done. But some of these guys you really need to ask, and you really should ask everybody. You shouldn't get scolded for asking to make sure your logistics are taken care of so you're not stranded somewhere just on pride. But still, like, I've been there. I forgot my keys, and I'm sure Todd's been there too. The more I think about it, I'm sure he forgot his keys, and my wife came and saved us. I gave her a call. And not only me, and sometimes I'll get a call just because people know I live on the Madison, and it'll be somebody from Bozeman, an acquaintance, or they go, hey, my shuttle I need a shuttle. And some guys, I don't mind running a shuttle or picking somebody up or helping them out. Just give me a heads up that that's what's going on, or that's what your plan is. I've had guys that have commit to just coming down here with no shuttle and then just call me when they're sitting at the takeout, like, hey, can you come run us up to our truck? We didn't have a shuttle. That's not planning ahead. Like, shoot me a text in the morning so I know it's coming, so I know I'm running your shuttle. But I've had that where I think that was just guys' plan, where they just came over with their boat and floated, and they got to the takeout and are an hour away and then called me. I always, it's good karma. You got to save a guy. There's also guys that'll hitchhike in the canyon. I just don't run that program. Like, I want my stuff taken care of. I'm not reliant upon anybody else. I know I've either got a shuttle rig or I paid for a shuttle and my rig's going to be there. But there's guys in the canyon on the lower that they'll just hitchhike for their shuttle ride. And so, usually I'll pick them up and give them a ride. I mean, I'm usually going that direction, and you can tell they're pretty harmless. It's just fishing down there. But yeah, I like to have my stuff taken care of when I'm fishing. But time to get out. Springtime. In fact, I better sit down here on the vise and do a couple ties. I'm going to go get some exercise today. Go ski up in the mountains up there. We'll do like these. I've got these. Oh, they're like all-terrain skis. They've got skins on them. Go up, go down. Elk are starting to drop, so who knows, maybe bump into an elk shed, something like that. Get out, get a little exercise, and fishing here soon. I'm hoping this week, towards the end and the weekend, it's going to warm up. I got to get out and throw this new stick, that new 7-weight. I'm just dying to get that thing out, that new line, and try it out. So, yeah, it'll be fun. It's going to be a great springtime. Starting to make some plans now, and just get out and enjoy it. There's no finer place and no finer day spent than floating down the river. I just love being engaged in the drift and in the float and reading the water and finding fish. I mean, that's pure joy and pure excitement to me when you work so hard to catch a fish and finally, you feel him on there and you got a fish and he's out of the water, It's just like, yeah, we did it. Fish on. It's so fun when you share it too with buddies and you have laughs, when you tangled up or you snap your stuff off and then tie back on and then you snap it off on the very next cat. It's just like, you can't write that stuff. It's just adventure. It's just being outside and experiencing life. And there's no coronavirus out there. Like, it's a pretty safe place to be. And, yeah, just spending time with like-minded individuals, floating down that river, wade fishing, getting exercise, wading the river, looking for trout. And you don't get that big one every day. Like, there's big next-level fish. I mean, I don't know how many days you have into actually catching those. So, part of it, too, is just enjoying being out there. And, I'm so lucky. This Madison has such a good size of fish for an average, It's... For me, I can go out and look for a 20-inch fish, which, in some rivers and in some places is the trophy specimen of trout and the biggest you'll find. And I just love those fish. They fight so hard, and I'll catch those till the day I die. Like, I'll catch 16 inches till the day I die. I just love fishing and being out. But I do like searching for that next level trout. That's what keeps me going. Every day I'm going out, I'm thinking I'm going to see that big, just butterscotch, just spotted big brown trout, that I'll pull out of a run. Oh, man, so fun. Back so thick and just like you catch 100 trout before you see like one of those really good next level ones. And they're just one of the older age class fish that's been able to survive and figure out its food source and to be able to outsmart that fish and hook up to him. And then when you're fighting a fish like that, one mistake and he's gone. They're such hard fighting fish. And so that's part of the fun of it, the adventure and the challenge. But, well, awesome. Another solo podcast done. Hopefully that gets you fired out. Hopefully that gets you fired up to go out and go get some fly fishing in. It's going to be a great season. And then coming into summer and all the hatches. Just some of my funnest days on planet Earth is spent on the river. So thanks, guys, for the support and listening into the podcast. I really, really appreciate it. And check in with you next week.